My fellow Australians,
A rare national address in the midst of another global crisis.
no government can promise to eliminate the pressures that this war is causing. I can promise we will do everything we can to protect Australia from the worst of it.
The Prime Minister striking a reassuring tone, but asking Australians to play their part.
Enjoy your Easter. And if you're hitting the road, don't take more fuel than you need, just fill up like you normally would. And over coming weeks, if you can switch to catching the train or bus or tram to work, do so.
Listing the multiple interventions to shore up fuel supplies and shield Australians from surging prices, including a midnight cut to the fuel excise already flowing through to the petrol pump.
We've already seen falls in prices across the country.
The first substantial falls in 5 long weeks. Unleaded down on average 16 cents a litre to $2.42. Diesel down too, prices cut by 12 cents to $3.11 a litre. Still elevated, but moving in the right direction.
There's still more to come based on those numbers.
The fuel excise cut should save drivers about 26 cents a litre. Servos to pass on the savings as they replenish their stocks. The state's now under pressure to do their bit to drive down prices even further.
We don't want to see the states and territories at war over this.
Premiers still at odds over plans to return the extra GST revenue they're making from higher fuel prices to motorists, despite discussions at this week's National Cabinet meeting.
Another 8 or 10 cents a litre is going to make a real difference to motorists.
Today, more help on offer, this time for small businesses struggling to pay their bills. Calls for a Team Australia response as the war drags on.
We know Coles, for instance, is providing longer shift hours on request to make longer commutes more worthwhile.
Australians now being asked to consider their fuel use too.
There was nothing in what the Prime Minister said tonight or has said during the week that can give them the confidence they need to know that we're in the situation we need to be.
Tonight, the Prime Minister. Tomorrow, it's Donald Trump's turn. The US President addressing his fellow citizens as the world watches on, waiting for his next move. Bracing for more pain the longer the Strait of Hormuz remains closed.
Well, let's bring in National Affairs correspondent Jane Norman. Jane, the last time a Prime Minister addressed the nation was during the pandemic. Why has Anthony Albanese given this address now?
Jess, we're in another global crisis, and with Australians about to go on their Easter break, it was a chance for the Prime Minister to speak directly to Australians, but also to start priming them for potential actions that may need to be taken should this crisis worsen. Now, the war is also at a very uncertain point. We're getting mixed messages from Donald Trump. Notably, tonight, the Prime Minister didn't mention the US President, but it's pretty clear he's losing his patience really with this conflict. And in recent days, we've seen the Prime Minister join European leaders in demanding some clarity around the end game in Iran. But as you say, these are very rare addresses. The last was during the COVID pandemic, and before that, the global financial crisis. And the conundrum is always how to reassure Australians without prompting panic. But certainly what we can take from tonight's address is that the government's taking this very seriously.
And Jane, the government has been hesitant to return to COVID-style mandates. Were there any clues as to when the government might introduce tougher measures?
Well, the message tonight was for Australians to go about their lives and to go on their Easter holidays. But we are starting to see the Prime Minister step up his calls for people to be mindful of their fuel use and, if they can, start taking public transport. Now, fuel rationing remains an option, but it's still a distant prospect. The Prime Minister and his state and territory counterparts are deeply reluctant to impose any kind of mandates or the kind of heavy-handed restrictions we all experienced during COVID. And for now, the fuel shipments are coming. There's about a month's worth of fuel in the national stockpile. But we are in uncertain times and Australia is vulnerable. And the longer this conflict drags on, Jess, the more pressure that will put on our fuel supplies.
Jane Norman, thank you.